Right over here, gentleman with the hat on. Yeah, Will, go ahead.
Hi. I have two questions for you, if that's
Go ahead.
okay. All right. The first one, and there seemed to be a bit of confusion, is the definition of atheism. It's not the assertion that a God doesn't exist. Rather, it's just the lack of belief that a God does exist. So.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, because that's a good point. That's what atheists tend to say, that it's a lack in belief that God does not exist, okay? Is it just a lack in belief? Let's take a little closer look at it, and then we'll go to your second question. First of all, if so, it's merely a claim about the atheist state of mind, not a claim about whether God really exists or not.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so if an atheist is just saying, I just lack a belief, okay, well, that's fine, but you're not really saying anything about the real world, okay, if you're saying that atheists just lack a belief in God. If so, it also means that rocks, trees, and animals are also atheists because they also lack a belief in God.
Exactly.
Which wouldn't really be saying anything, right? Okay, so that's not really a good way of putting atheism. And also, if atheists are saying it's just a lack of belief in God, why do they insist that God isn't needed to explain reality? Because, they use evolution, quantum theory, multiverses. Those are positive beliefs. I also noticed that many atheists, including my friend Christopher Hitchens, who I said died a couple years ago, didn't really call himself an atheist. What he called himself was an anti-theist.
Yes.
In other words, he's positively against God. He's fighting against God, which is why at the end of the debate I said, you can sum up Christopher Hitchens' position in one sentence. There is no God and I hate him. Okay? He was angry with God. So this idea that atheism is just a lack in belief is really a vacuous claim, because it's only a claim about a person's state of mind, not about the real world. So the real brave atheists are the ones who say, look, I think the evidence shows there is no God.
Yes. Well, if I could just clarify, the idea is that atheism really is a claim that shouldn't exist at all, is a term that shouldn't exist at all. It's like saying you're an a-leprechaunist or an a-unicornist. The only reason we have to classify ourselves as this is because we're existing outside of normality.
Right, but no matter whether you want to call yourself an atheist or a non-theist or an anti-theist, everybody who makes a claim and wants to be a reasonable person has to explain reality from that vantage point. In other words, an atheist would have to explain, if he's going to be reasonable and consistent, where did the universe come from? Where did design come from? Where did morality come from? Where did the laws of logic come from? Consciousness, all of these things that we all know about that are not material things, yet atheists are trying to say that everything's material. Well, we know that everything's not material because we're, for example, using the laws of logic right now, which are not material.
Mm-hmm. Well, the entire point I'm trying to make here is that atheism is not a set of beliefs. Atheism doesn't back quantum theory, doesn't back the multiverse theory. It's simply the lack of a belief that God exists.
Here's the problem, though. Hear me out on this, Will. The problem is you can say that if you want to be an atheist, but you're not saying anything about anything outside your skull then.
Exactly.
Which is, who cares, right?
Yeah. Well,
if you want to be a reasonable person, you've got to say, okay, I lack a belief in God, and then therefore I'm going to try and explain how the universe came into existence, morality, design, and all these other things in another way. Okay, what is that way then?
Well, the point is the book title itself classifies atheism almost as a belief because in order to have faith being the firm belief in something for which there is no proof, you have to have a claim that you're backing. Atheism makes no claim. Atheists have beliefs outside of their lack of religious state of mind.
Every atheist, the new atheists, like Dawkins, Hitchens, Sam Harris, they all make these claims. Evolution gets rid of design for God. Quantum theory means we don't need a beginner, when in fact we do. The multiverse, it tries to explain away design. Those are positive beliefs. They're not just a lack in a belief.
But they're not atheism.
These are what all atheists say, though. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Go on to your second point.
Second point is the argument from complexity. What did you call it? Something?
The teleological argument. Telos is a word meaning design or purpose, yes.
That, as well as the cosmological argument. They're great arguments for deism, showing that there has to have been some sort of cause. But all it boils down to is an argument from ignorance, which, as you probably well know, is a logical fallacy. You're saying, I don't know how this came to be, therefore we're going to accept this statement. So you really can't be intellectually honest if you're saying from a philosophical standpoint or even a scientific standpoint, that this is proof that a God exists, because you're simply saying, I don't know, and then jumping to, well, it must be this.
You're saying that this is a God of the gaps argument. That's what you're trying to say. Okay,
exactly.
That's not what we're saying. Let me give you just 2 minutes on this. You see this? This is an amoeba, something the Darwinists say we all evolved from. And notice
an ancestor of the amoeba.
Yeah. Now notice it doesn't say made by Yahweh or made by natural forces on it, right?
Yes.
So always the scientist is going to have to make an interpretation. In other words, science doesn't say anything. Scientists do.
Yes.
And there's an article on our website by that name, Science Doesn't Say Anything, Scientists Do. You can read it to see what it's about. But this was considered no big deal back in Darwin's day. This was considered to be a blob of protoplasm, and maybe natural forces could come together and put this together, and through natural selection we could all be here. There's no need for a designer, in other words. Today we know that that's not the case. In fact, inside of this little amoeba is something that clearly has the marks of design. In order to show you this, I got to take you to your breakfast table. How many people in here like alphabet cereal? Let's suppose you want to have a bowl of alphabet cereal. You're a teenager. You come downstairs to have a bowl of alphabet cereal, and you see that the cereal's knocked over on the table, and right in the middle of the table, the letter spelled, "Take out the garbage, Mom." What are you going to assume? The cat knocked the box over? Earthquake shook the house? No, you're going to say that that's intelligent design from an intelligent being, Mom. Now, here's the question. Do we just lack a natural explanation when we see "take out the garbage, Mom"? Or is that positive evidence for an intelligent being?
Well, in and of itself, it's not evidence for an intelligent being. We can make the inference because it's a natural process.
Wait, hold on. What was that?
we can make an inference.
You always make inferences.
Yes.
Are you inferring that an earthquake did this or that Mom did this?
You're inferring that your mom did this because you have evidence of things like this not happening outside of intelligence.
That's exactly the point.
However,
you got it.
With the universe, we only have one universe.
Hold on. I'm not done. Okay. I'm just saying that this is evidence of intelligent design, and you agree with that.
Sure.
Okay. Well, if this is intelligence or evidence of an intelligent design, then DNA must be as well. Because you see, DNA is a message like "take out the garbage, Mom," but in a human being, it's 3 billion letters long. So if something that's 15 letters long requires an intelligence, then something 15 billion letters or 3 billion letters long requires an intelligence. You say, well, maybe it started simpler. Like maybe it started in an amoeba. The problem in an amoeba has 1,000 volumes of an encyclopedia worth of information in it. The simplest code is thousands of volumes long. So if "take out the garbage, Mom" shows there must be an intelligent being, then it seems to me that a message much longer also requires an intelligent being. And by the way, it's not me who came up with 1,000 volumes in a microscopic amoeba. It's Richard Dawkins himself.
Yes.
The most famous atheist in the world. So when we infer to design, we are not creating a God of the gaps argument here. We are saying that we have positive evidence for intelligence.
My only problem here is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. "Take out the garbage, Mom" isn't all too extraordinary, but an entire universe you're attributing to a creator for which there's no evidence, for which you've said is outside of time, outside of space, isn't made of matter.
Right.
So you're trying to prove what is in its nature unprovable.
Why is it unprovable? We are using spaceless, timeless, immaterial things right now.
Like what?
The laws of logic.
True, but they're conceptual.
They are conceptual, but they're not just conceptual. In other words, they would exist even if no humans existed.
They in and of themselves are conceptual, but for them to be applied, there has to be a physical being, a physical mind to make the computations and apply the laws of logic.
Well, of course, you have to have a mind to apply the laws of logic, but the laws of logic exist even if no minds existed on the earth. Right? So they're not just human conceptions. They are grounded in a mind, you're correct. What mind? The immaterial, spaceless, timeless mind.
Here's my only problem with that. The laws of logic in and of themselves don't do anything. This God you're claiming has created the entire universe.
Right.
So you're making a jump here from something that's purely conceptual, that we can't prove exists, that's immaterial, but that we only apply, that doesn't act in and of itself. And you're saying, well, that's the same as this immaterial God.
Okay, well,
an
let me
entire
ask you this.
universe.
Well, if space, matter, and time had a beginning, what caused it?
I don't know.
Well, you can say I don't know, or you can follow the evidence where it leads. Space, time, matter had a beginning, and the being must also be personal to make a choice to create, must also be intelligent to put this universe together with such precision, must also be moral because we have the moral law, must also be a creator in order to create from nothing, and powerful. Those are the attributes of God. Why wouldn't you just accept that?
When you jump to must be personal because we exist.
No, not personal because we exist. Personal because anything exists.
Okay, because he made us the way we are.
No. Personal to go from a state of nothingness to a state of creation. The being had to make a choice. Gravity doesn't make choices, right?
Okay.
So
I'm still
a
not
personal
seeing how
being.
it actually lines up logically. It seems like kind of a jump just based on wishful thinking. It all boils down to an argument from ignorance. I don't know.
No.
So this has to be
No. Will, it's not an argument from ignorance. There's positive evidence that a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, moral, personal, intelligent creator exists. That's what we've been given here.
Just as much evidence that there's a spaceless, immaterial, flying spaghetti monster that exists.
No, because the flying spaghetti monster is a being inside the universe, if he exists at all, made of spaghetti.
But
spaghetti had a beginning. It's
by
material.
His nature, he's outside of the universe. He simply chooses to appear to us in the form of spaghetti.
Well, if you want to call the God of the Bible the flying spaghetti monster, be my guest, but you're not going to find it in the scriptures.
The point is simply that you can't prove something that's immaterial. You can claim to make these blanket statements and just jump from one claim to another, but it's not proof.
Will, what do you mean by proof?
Physical proof.
What does that mean, physical proof? Is the universe not physical?
The universe is physical.
Okay, well, that's physical proof right there. The whole universe had a beginning, so it can't come from more physical because all physical had a beginning.
It had a beginning, but the jump is when you say that beginning was a creator.
Well, if there was a creation, there has to be a creator. Am I right?
If you're presupposing that it's a creation.
I'm not presupposing it. The atheists are telling me that.
There's an existence. If you presuppose that it's a creation, then there has to be a creator.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Honest answer.
Honest.
If Christianity were true, would you become a Christian?
Well, I have to preface this by saying I would believe it was true if there was evidence for it, but I would not be a Christian.
Why not?
I don't believe a lot of the things that the Bible says to be moral.
So you have your own moral standard by which you judge the Bible.
My moral standard is based on empathy, emotion. What would I want them to do to me?
Well, Jesus said something like that. That's pretty good.
So did Confucius.
Yeah, that's called
Aristotle.
That's called the golden rule,
yeah.
which is known even without the Bible. We know
Yes.
that.
But
So-
I prefer Confucius's version because he says it like this: "Do to others as they would wish you do to them." It requires a bit more thinking, a bit more empathy, but it's much more accurate because it's not that there's some third party setting the moral standards. It's that you're interacting with your fellow beings and you're seeing what would be best for all of you to exist as a cohesive unit.
Well, you know,
which is the human species.
Hitler said what would be best is to kill all the undesirables, and that would be best for the human race. Did he have the authority to say that?
He had the authority to say that, but it doesn't necessarily make him correct.
Well, there has to be a standard outside of Hitler and me and you that establishes what is correct then. That's what we mean by God.
I get what you mean by it, but it doesn't necessarily make it true. Because we can get our moral principles simply by empathy. Simply by saying, well, if I were to smack someone, that would be bad because I wouldn't want them to smack me.
Well, I've got several slides that we could talk about this, but I know other people want to ask questions.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Thank you for being honest by answering that even if it were true, you would not be a Christian. You have the free will to reject. That's why God gave you free will, so you could reject or accept. but
Okay.
thank you. We can talk more if you want. Let's go to somebody else. Thank you.